We're going to go on to verse 4. I'm sorry, chapter 4. And see where the enemy stand is in this situation. Chapter 4 says, But it so happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. In chapter 3, he already points out what the positions are of the people. That's why we went over it, because it points out of all where the people need to be at. He had to plan ahead. But here now that they see it starting to begin, this is after they had heard about it, they were very, very disturbed. Now they were very indignant. It says, furious, and mocked the Jews. You know, sometimes the enemy comes upon us when they see things happening good in our lives. And they too are, very indignant. And they sometimes mock us for what's going on. And he says, and he even spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, what are these feeble Jews doing? What are you Christians doing? What do you think you're doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will you build yourself up? What are you trying to do? You trying to make yourself strong in his word? Will they offer sacrifices? Will you tithe to your church? Will you sacrifice offerings to God? What are you doing? Will they complete it in a day? He's putting, will you do all this in an instant? Will your change in lifestyle will be that instant? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish? Stones burned? Stones that are burned? What do you think you're going to get out of what your life is? Your life is a destruction. This is the enemy talking to you, brothers and sisters. He wants you to hear all this. He wants you to think, how can you get out of where you're at? How can you get out of what you're doing? There's nothing inside you that is good. Everything inside you is destroyed. How are you going to come out of this all in one time? Just by being baptized or just by going to church. Do you think that's going to really help you? This is what these people were going through. The same thing that we go through, brothers and sisters. We hear this. Now in verse 3, it continues and says, Now Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, Whatever they build, if even a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall. This is more criticism about what you're building up, brothers and sisters. This is more criticism from the enemy. He thinks that you're not doing, enough. He says, you know what? Even if you do build up the wall, even just a little dog or a little fox is going to come up there and kick it right over. Whatever you're building up is not going to be that strong, even if you do build it up. But what does he say? In the verses 4 and 5, he answers with a prayer. Same way, he didn't instantly continue to go back with them with their own words. That's what they wanted. They want you to come out of your shell. But what did he do? He answered in 3 and 4 and 5 with prayer. Hear, O God, O our God, for we are despised. Turn the reproach to their own heads and give them as plunder to the captivity. He knew he couldn't do it himself. He knew he couldn't do it himself and turn it, and put that on them. He knew God had to be there. He knew he had to have that communication with God. Let's go to verse 6. And what did it say? Even though after all that criticism, even after all that, bad talk, whatever, from the enemy, what does it say? So we built a wall, and the entire wall was joined up to half its height. Why? And I believe this is the reason why. For the people had a mind to work. It says, for the people had a mind to work. When we ourselves have that desire to do something for God, we're already halfway there. We already know what He wants us to do. We just have to put that desire in our hearts to do it. We can't just sit by and say, okay, well, I know it can happen, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. They said, so they built a wall. So we built a wall, he says. And it was already built up to half its height. Verse 7 says, Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored, and the gaps were beginning to close, that they became very angry. The enemy hates it, brothers and sisters. He completely hates it when God's work is progressing. And he will come at you again with more criticism. They became very angry. He's going to hate it. He's going to hate it. And in verse 8 it says, And all of them conspired together and come attack Jerusalem and create confusion. These are two ways, brothers and sisters. Two ways that the enemy comes upon us in these times of destruction and times of stress. You know, he attacks us with these words. You know, in our own minds, sometimes it's our own. We'll go over that right now in the next couple verses, but he creates also confusion. You know, what am I supposed to do in this time? Where am I supposed to go? I don't know where to turn to. You know, he wants us to, you know, be the furthest away from God that we can, because he knows us. The closer we are to God, the better we are in that situation. And he wants nothing but the worst for us. Verse 9 says, nevertheless, we make our prayer to our God. There it is. There's the answer. And because of them, we set a watch against them day and night. He was keeping watch at all times. Not just on Saturdays. Not just when he came to, church. When he's out there with fellow brethren. He did it at all times. Morning and night. And here's the doubt thing that we were talking about earlier. In verse 10, it says, then Judah said, the strength of the laborers is failing. And there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. Even though they were already halfway built up, the enemy was still inside them. They were still within themselves. Talking to them, telling them, even though you got already halfway up, look what else you still got to battle with. All this rubbish in the way. Look at all this dirt and all these rocks are still in your way. You're not going to get this done. This is what the enemy wants in our lives, even though we still are only halfway there. A lot of us already, maybe still there, stuck in that halfway position because we can't get out of that. We're still listening to that word about there's too much in our way. There's too much stress in my life. There's too much destruction. I can't get past all this. But this is what the enemy wants. Don't let it happen, brothers and sisters. He goes on to say, and our adversary said, they would neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease. This is what he wants. This complete destruction, death. The death, brothers and sisters. So it was when the Jews who dwelt near them came that they told us 10 times. 10 times. Imagine hearing this over and over. From whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. From whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. From whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. Imagine hearing that over and over. That's going to, arise fear in your life. That's going to put some kind of, timidness in your personal life, in everyone's minds, in their hearts. Even after all that, Nehemiah knew he couldn't let all that get to him. He couldn't let that be inside his heart. He had to prepare for it. What did he do? Therefore I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings. I set the people according to the families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. He knows, the weaknesses of his own people. So he had to position the people in that position to be ready for that. Our same lives, brothers and sisters. We have to know where our weaknesses are. We have to know where they're at. Put God's position in there. That way he's ready when that attack comes. We have to be ready for that at all times.